the road to Bistritz wound like a serpent through the Carpathian Mountains. Its stones were slick with mist, and the forest pressed close on both sides, ancient, watchful, and alive. Jonathan Cross, an American journalist known for debunking paranormal myths, drove the final stretch with his recorder balanced on the seat beside him. His latest assignment, Halloween in Transylvania debunking Dracula. It sounded like clickbait, but he was here for the truth behind the tales. He had chosen Bistritz because it was said to be the last village to still celebrate the Night of the Blood Moon, an old ritual dating back hundreds of years. Every century, on Halloween, the villagers gathered in the town square, wearing masks of nobles and peasants, to reenact a sacrifice they claimed kept the land fertile. Jonathan thought it was theater. But as the mountains opened up to reveal the valley, he noticed something wrong with the moon. It hung enormous and red, not crimson like wine, but dark, like blood drying on old steel. When he arrived in the village, the streets were empty. Wooden shutters closed, candles flickered behind frosted glass, and somewhere far off, a violin played a slow, trembling tune. At the inn, an old man was waiting for him, short, white-bearded, wearing a heavy wool coat despite the fire burning in the hearth. "You're here for the story," the old man said in rough English. "But the story is not what you think," Jonathan smiled politely. "I'm here for facts." The innkeeper's eyes glinted in the firelight. "Then you will not like what you find." He slid a brass key across the table, its bow shaped like a crescent moon. "Lock your door after sunset. And if you hear the bells from the mountain, do not open your window." By dusk, the town began to wake. A low mist rolled down the alleys as lanterns lit one by one. People emerged in masks ornate, painted with gold and soot, the faces of old nobles and lords. Some smiled too wide. Others had mouths sewn shut with black thread. Jonathan followed them, camera in hand, through narrow cobblestone streets that led to the central square. There, a massive oak stood rooted in the center, its bark blackened, its branches heavy with chains of tiny bells. Beneath it, a stone altar was smeared with something dark. The air smelled of iron. A man in a stag mask raised his hands for silence. "Tonight," he declared in Romanian, "we honor the pact of the blood moon." The crowd repeated the phrase, like a hymn. "Sangele hranește pământul." The blood feeds the earth. Jonathan's recorder blinked red. He whispered into it, "Local harvest festival. Seems ritualistic, possibly pagan roots." But even as he said it, he felt eyes on him, dozens of them. Behind the masks, the villagers didn't blink. The ceremony began with laughter and dancing. Men poured wine. Women in embroidered dresses twirled under lantern light. It looked almost beautiful until the music stopped. A single bell rang from the mountain. The moon, red and heavy, rose to its zenith. The man in the stag mask pointed to Jonathan. "The stranger will witness, as is tradition." He was pulled forward by unseen hands. Laughter echoed, but it had changed too high, too hollow. Someone placed a mask over his face, the face of a wolf, old and cracked. At the altar, a small wooden bowl was filled with blood. Pig's blood, he told himself. A symbol. Then the villagers began chanting slower now, voices blending into a droning hum. The ground vibrated. Jonathan lifted his camera, trying to film, but the lens fogged over. The air thickened, warm and metallic. From beneath the oak, a noise rose deep and wet, like something breathing through the earth. Then came the second bell. The villagers dropped to their knees, whispering prayers that tangled with the wind. Jonathan stumbled backward. His foot struck something hard in the soil. A carved stone face, half buried, eyes open and weeping black sap. The roots of the oak began to move. He ran past the masks, past the whispers, into the forest. Branches clawed at him, and his recorder slipped from his pocket. Still whispering his own frantic breath, behind him, the chanting grew louder, overlapping, faster, until it no longer sounded human. He reached a clearing. The sky was red as fire. Ahead, on the slope of the mountain, stood an ancient abbey, windowless, silent. He pushed open its heavy door and collapsed inside. But he was not alone. In the center of the hall stood an altar of stone, identical to the one in the village, except this one was clean, polished, waiting. Above it hung a mural, faded, but still clear enough to read. A man with a wolf's face, offering blood to the moon. Jonathan's stomach turned. The same mask was still tied to his head. He tore it off, gasping, but his hands came away red. Not paint, blood. His blood. A voice rose behind him, soft, female, close to his ear. "You are the witness," she whispered. He turned. A woman stood there, veiled in black. Her eyes gleamed silver in the half-light. Every century, one stranger comes to doubt, to watch, to feed. The pact. Jonathan stumbled back. I didn't agree to this. She smiled faintly. You crossed the mountains under the blood moon. That is enough. The bells from the oak tree began to ring again. Faint, distant, and yet somehow inside the abbey itself. Dust fell from the ceiling as the ground began to tremble. The mural above him shifted, paint cracking, colors deepening. The wolf-faced man began to move. His eyes opened. The woman raised her hands. The moon remembers what we forget. And Jonathan finally saw what lay beneath the abbey floor, cracks glowing red, pulsing like veins. The mountain itself was breathing. He ran for the door, but it had vanished. The walls stretched like skin. The air grew thick and coppery. His camera, still clutched in his hand, flickered recording fragments. The mural bleeding, the woman smiling, the shadow behind her taking shape. A voice, deep and ancient, spoke through the walls. The pact is renewed. Jonathan screamed as the ground split open. The abbey filled with red light, flooding upward, a wave of molten blood rising from the earth. It touched him, and his voice broke into a gasp that wasn't entirely human. The next morning, Bistritz was quiet. The villagers swept the square, removed the masks, and buried the bowl of blood beneath the oak. The red moon had set. The sky was pale blue. At the inn, the old man stirred the fire and listened to the news on the radio. A foreign journalist had gone missing during the Halloween festival. His rental car had been found near the forest, doors open, headlights on. The villagers didn't search. They never did. That night, when the moon rose white again, the old man walked to the window and looked toward the mountain. Far above, near the abbey ruins, a single light flickered, the faint red glow of a camera still recording. And for a moment, he could have sworn he heard a voice in the wind. Jonathan's voice, whispering through the trees. The moon remembers what we forget. Then the light went out, and the bells began to ring.